Hello, you're welcome to The Next MP. My name is Kafui Day. My guest is an experienced educationist, a Deputy Minister for Education in charge of basic and secondary education, and the Member of Parliament for the good people of Bosumtwi in the Ashanti region, Dr. Yao Osei Iduchum. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You spent quite a large amount of your working life in the USA. Tell us a little bit about that and why you decided to return to Ghana to do politics.
Of all things, right?
Of all things.
I spent almost like half of my life, not just working life, in America for about 26, getting to the 27th year, and work in the education space. Even though I was originally trained in Ghana as a land economist, you know, in Ghana, land economists do valuation of properties, what we call appraisal of properties, and land administration. So after 1 year of completing my program, I also worked for Land Valuation Board for National Service before I found myself in America, where I did quite a few jobs. You know, when you go to America, you start with jobs like security, and did that for about 1.5 years. Then became a substitute teacher, like a person who fills in when a regular teacher doesn't show up in school. Unlike here where you can just leave the case and when a teacher doesn't show up. So I did that for about 1.5 years, and then I got myself into full-time teaching as a mathematics teacher, something I did for 5 years, and then added on ICT teaching. So between ICT and mathematics, I did 10 years. And then there was a wonderful opportunity in America where the government was looking at how they can revamp their public education system, and they wanted people with new ideas to create a new type of public school system where your new ideas will be funded by the federal government initially, and after that the local authorities will have to approve your school, and then based on the vision for the school, the federal government, state government will fund you. So that the children, when they come there, don't have to pay any tuition. They don't pay anything. They are funded as if they were going to public schools. And that is something Americans want to do. They felt that if the public school fails them, they are failing the next generation of citizens, which is the poor is going to be poorer if they don't get quality education. So they were willing to put everything on the table to say to themselves, how do we change the public school system so that when we do that, then the promise of America will be real for those children who are growing up at the time. So they created what is called charter schools. And these are public-private partnership schools. Individuals like myself with a bold vision for education transformation respond to a request for proposals. They will give you about $500,000 and you begin. And begin developing it. You open the school and they see how it goes. 5 years of a license, it goes very well. They renew and renew. They can renew forever, as they've been renewing for my schools. So after teaching for 10 years, I felt strongly that I could do more for America. And therefore, I was one of the few black people at the time who got into that space and felt that we could change the education system. So we went in, submitted a proposal. The first grant proposal I had ever responded to, and the government gave me $450,000 to begin. Of course, it couldn't build a school, so I rented space in a church. We began the process, and I opened the school in 2004 with 100 students from various backgrounds, mostly Latino, blacks, and down the line Asians and other races joining. But the bottom line is we began with 100 in a very small space. With time, the enrollment grew, and we're able to access different type of financing. And actually, we did tax-exempt bond financing that gave us $20 million to actually build our first school, and in terms of infrastructure. And the rest is history. Did that for about 12 years before. One day, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, campaigning for presidency, visited my school. And he was simply amazed that a Ghanaian could build schools for Americans. I had about 200 workers at the time, and he couldn't believe that a Ghanaian could do that. So after asking me how I was able to do it, he also asked me, would you consider coming back to Ghana to help me change the education system. And he talked about free senior high school, and I got excited because I almost didn't go to high school. And I know that people that I grew up with, if they had gone to high school, probably could have done better than me. So for somebody who literally could not have afforded high school through the normal means of father going to pay for you, and then getting into high school and finding myself in America, building schools for Americans, thinking about coming back was difficult because of how I was and the money that I was making and the influence I had.
Okay.
But at the same time, it wasn't difficult because I was reflecting back to say that if I could get access to senior high school and look at me now, what about if hundreds of thousands of children could get access to senior high school through the promise made by this man? And if I could be part of that story, why don't I leave everything and go?
And so you came back to Ghana?
So I came back to Ghana, ran for parliament in Bosomtwe, and they thought that I would lose because most of them, oh, you are just coming to test the waters, right? I said, I'm not coming to test the waters.
Were you returning to Ghana while you were in the States?
A few times.
A few times.
I had come a few times. And I had done some projects in my constituency.
Okay.
I had built a private senior high school for those children who could not get into the public schools, whether because of cost or lack of access. I had built another high school in Bosomtwe, and we're recruiting children from across the district, and almost all of them were funded through donations from my friends in the U.S.
Okay, so
yeah, so I had done something there. I also had a microfinance program that was going on at the time, mostly targeting market women and how we could help them break the cycle of poverty and a whole lot of others. So at least I had some influence, but I'm amazed as to how people thought I didn't know what I was doing because I was from America.
But you did well in the elections. You had over 80%.
Yeah, I mean, because actually in the primaries, I had 72%. And that was surprising. First time, people thought I was going to lose big time. And I won the primary with 72% of the delegate vote. And then in the general election, of course, we did very well. But the whole idea was I had to be scientific about the process. I didn't come in thinking I knew what the terrain was. I had a consultant, a professor of statistics who did a research for me. So going into the election, going into the primaries, I knew that I was going to win because I had a research. So the delegates who by the research were not for me, I knew, and those who were not too sure, I knew, and those who were in my corner, I knew. So the research, were able to then target people and say, hey, we need to talk to this person, we need to do this. But I ran my primary campaign as if I was running a general election campaign.
Okay, how do you mean?
Because the thing is this, you walk into a primary and the thinking is that target delegates because they are the kingmakers and they are the ones who either make or undo.
Well, in Ghana we say fear delegates.
Fear delegates, yes, and you have to fear delegates, but there's nothing more powerful than having the chief of a village buying into your vision.
Okay.
And he calling the delegates to tell them that this is my guy.
Okay, so kind of indirectly.
Yes, it's more powerful.
them.
More powerful. So I went to churches, talked to pastors. The pastor will say, oh, that delegate is my member. And I'm going to talk to him because you are the kind of person we want in this constituency.
You've just given aspiring members of parliament some free consultancy.
Yes.
Talk to the chiefs, talk to the...
Oh, yes. The time is short, but pastors. Nothing is more powerful. There's very those of us in the villages. In the urban areas may be different. But in the villages, nothing is more powerful than the chief calling the delegates and saying that I've saw that young man. He's the one who can help us. Please make sure you vote for him. And then when you do the general election type of campaign, people even go to the extent of calling the delegates and say, if you don't vote for this guy, don't come back to the village.
Kind of. All right.
So
it worked for you?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. So, yes, I engaged with the delegates. I did workshops. Workshops where I showed them what I was going to do, my vision. And my whole message was, I'm not going to talk about my opponent negatively. Never a time did I speak negatively of my opponent. He was a formidable guy. He's the current Ashanti Regional Minister. Very good guy who has done different things for the constituents. My vision was that because of my background and the experiences I have, I'll be an asset to the country when I come. And I'm going to do things for you that you never imagined will happen. Not because the current guy cannot deliver, it's because I have some kind of experience that is going to enable you to deliver for you and for the country.
Okay, so you ran the campaign like a general election, you won, and from 2017, 7th January to date, you've been the Member of Parliament for the good people of Bosontri.
Yes.
What have you done for them up until now? Can you give us
I would say, what has the president done for them? Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo has delivered for Bosontri big time. Anybody who, the older folks will tell you they've never seen anything like that in Bosontri. They've never seen development in Bosontri than under the presidency of Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo. And I'll give you a few examples. That the reason why people are excited, super excited in Bosontri. You go to the front of the lake. The Bosontri side of the lake has about 17 kilometers of road. That has never been done in any way, shape, or form. Sometimes you're driving through and it's like a pathway. This time around, we have machines on the road now. And the 17-kilometer stretch of the Bosontri side of the lake is going to be done. By December, you see a different road network.
Going to be done or already done?
The machines are on it, and they are doing the work. So I'm saying by December, because you have to do the initial work and then leveling and the culverts and everything, and then the tarring of the road.
But it's taken 3 years for that to be
no, let me tell you,
actualized. Isn't that slow?
Go and ask anywhere from Bosontri, and they will say, we don't care if it takes 10 years because we never thought it was going to ever happen.
But then you have
it's so remote and so deserted, nothing has ever happened there. So they are not making the argument.
But then somebody will say the expectations are so low that the little thing that you do is going to excite them.
Hey, my brother, road is not a little thing. The schools we've done there is not. Go to Pipie, old Pipie, front of the lake. For the first time, they are seeing a brand new government-built junior high school. Never ever dreamt.
What do you think accounted for the neglect of Bosontri?
Let me tell you this. Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo came into this presidency with a new vision. And that is something that people don't seem to grasp. When he talks of Ghana beyond aid and he talks about transformation of Ghana, he means it. Look, let me give you an example of the 1 million per constituency. You may say that what has been the neglect? Never has it ever happened that the member of parliament has a say in how $1 million is used in development.
Did you receive that money?
Of course. Not in my hands.
Where did it go?
It goes to Middle Belt Authority. All the projects are now under construction.
So Bosontri constituency has $1 million
for infrastructure.
Allocated for it.
Infrastructure. And let me tell you, I wanted to just begin with the roads. So the lakefront road from Jache to Sewia to Dunyina under construction. Never did anybody think it was going to have. The main road from Kumasi to Lake Bosontri is under construction. The culverts, everything is being done. Now, that's the road. Now let's come to schools. Bosontri, when we came to office, had 3 senior high schools. In September, we'll have about 8 of them. Different sources of funding.
What does that mean? The other 5, at what level of construction are they?
No. Some of them were absorbed private schools. Like my private school, I've given it to the government. And the government built new infrastructure there. Then the Pramso had technical vocational school.
You gave it to the government?
Oh yeah, I gave
it. They didn't buy it from you?
Of course not. I didn't want to sell it. My goal was not to make money from the school. It sits on 10 acres of land, and we have about 15 classrooms and a boys' dorm. And I gave it to the government.
You just gave it to the government?
Oh yes. And there was one building, a huge building that was under construction, about to be completed, that was given to the government. The government came in, completed, fully owned by Ghana Education Service. They didn't take a dime, because my whole goal was, how would I support education at the free senior high school? If I have a facility, why don't I give it to the government so that it will benefit the people of Bosontri? So that is given out. And we have other schools currently under construction through the $1 million per constituency. You go to Bosontri now, and we have Bosontri Girls Senior High School, funded by the government and GMPC through Dr. K.K. Sapon. They are building a beautiful science building, and the government has put up 18-unit building. That school may be open in September, God willing. And if you go there now, I have 9 science labs to begin.
I mean, it sounds great. I mean, it's physical infrastructure, but where are the teachers that will populate these infrastructures?
Do you know Ghana?
This infrastructure to deliver
we don't have shortage
education.
of teachers in Ghana. In our time, we have employed over 90,000 teachers during the last 3.5 years. There's no shortage of teachers in Ghana. So far as you are willing to hire, they are there in their numbers. Everywhere you turn, there's a teacher waiting to be employed, because the teachers that we employ are the ones who go to colleges of education. All the people who does college education degrees from Winneba, from Cape Coast, now from UDS, and now from Tech, are not hired by the government.
Okay, so infrastructure, the roads leading to the Ghana's biggest lake, Bosontri.
Yes, of course. West Africa's finest.
Yeah, I agree. And what else?
I mean, schools are everywhere now. I mean, the government has built a big administration block for Beposu Senior High School. You go to Jachi Pramsu Senior High, they have 2 dormitory blocks because of the expansion of the double track elimination program. 2 girls dormitory, boys dormitory, a 2-story classroom block, administration block, and an assembly block. That's Jachi Pramsu. Beposu Senior High, 3-story teachers dorm housing project being done. And there was Saiduchum Senior High School, a major infrastructure development. All that. Then what excites me, that shows what a vision and innovation can do, is Bosontri Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics Academy. Bosontri STEM Academy, born out of the fact that we want to create a pipeline of engineers and medical doctors in Bosontri. My opinion was that I don't understand why what we do in America cannot be done in Ghana. When I came to Bosontri and running in the primaries and visitor schools, I was just distraught looking at the nature of the facilities. And then I went to this school that borders Jachi Pramsu Senior High School, called the Jachi DA1. Building is falling apart. When it rains, it's like a puddle in the middle of the classroom. And I couldn't understand why that should be happening. And
so you got involved.
I got involved.
And of course, with your science, your maths and IT background, too, it's closer to your heart and everything. And you got it done.
What the people needed was that you re-roof the building, right?
Okay.
So that when it rains, it won't be like a lake. But I saw a great opportunity, because sitting next to a senior high school. And I said to myself, why don't I revamp this school totally? Why don't I pull down that building? Because it doesn't belong here.
Right.
So, lo and behold, we had a plan. We pulled out the building.
Okay.
$1 million per constituency came in. We're building a science block at the roofing stage. 2 classroom blocks has been done. The old school has been settled somewhere with new buildings. A big auditorium is under construction through the $1 million per constituency. We even have a swimming pool as part of the design of the school, which will start from primary 6 all the way to senior high school.
And the people associate you, the MP of Bosontri, with all these projects?
Of course, because, you know, to me, I've always said this, and I'm glad I said it. When people were making a case that MPs are not responsible for development, I said otherwise when I came in, because I felt strongly that in America, members of Congress are responsible for development. So you go to Congress and you lobby for your people. They call it POC. That means you want something to your for your people.
Indeed.
Yeah. So I believe strongly that as a member of parliament, I'm the #1 development agent. That does not mean I'm going to use my money, but it also means that wherever resources I have a say, first of all, common fund. I have a say in what to use the common fund for. Then Middle Belt Authority. I have a say as to how that money should be used for in terms of the $1 million per constituency. But beyond that, I should be the one going to the ministers and other people and say, my district, my constituency needs this. And they will respond more to me than Penny Kojo Mensa boarding Trotro and coming to Accra and saying that he doesn't even know where to go to.
I get that.
So I'm not going to say that because I'm the MP. No, I'm the #1 advocate, development agent for my constituency.
And it also helps that you're a deputy minister for education. And we'll talk about that shortly. But I know your constituency chairman, Akins Adaipoku, was all for you going unopposed for the 2020 elections. Are you relieved that you didn't have to go into a primaries battle with somebody who would be eyeing your seat?
You see, let me tell you this.
Why didn't they allow somebody just to compete against you?
Nobody came. Nobody came.
Maybe they were convinced that they should don't go.
I mean, one, we are a different kind of district, or constituency for that matter. We have a constituency where we are united for development.
But when you were coming in the first time, you had opponents.
Of course.
Yes.
There were three of us. Now, all that I'm saying is this. Bosomtwe has changed. One, because we are united. Between myself, the DCE, and the chairman, our focus is how can we develop Bosomtwe. Because you see, Bosomtwe is uniquely placed. Uniquely placed in the sense that we are the only constituency in Ashanti that has a regional minister coming from there, and the regional chairman of the party coming from there. And then we have three people, chairman, DC, and myself. So if we don't develop Bosomtwe, posterity will literally curse us. The children are going to say, you guys are useless. You, for the first time, had a regional minister coming from your constituency, the regional chairman coming from your constituency. You sat there and wasted your opportunity bickering and fighting. No. So you come to Bosomtwe and there's a sense of unity, of purpose, that if the DC wants something, he's going to call me. He's coming to Accra, he calls me and say, I'm coming, this is what I'm talking about, this is what I'm advocating for, how can you also add your voice so that we'll get it together? So unlike other places where there's a fight and the chairman is fighting the MP is fighting DC, we don't have that problem.
You must be relieved though.
Oh, yeah, of course. So we've taken advantage of that to do more. So under that circumstance, I'm not surprised that nobody showed up. And also, if anybody showed up, it was going to be an interesting fight. Look at my record and what you want to do. At the national level, I'm not bragging, but I've done something. I have taken my portfolio seriously. The promise the president made to me to come and help him, I think I've delivered on that promise of helping him. When you look at the advocacy and the work that we've done in the education ministry, in the leadership of our minister. And then beyond that, I'm not the type that you can say, you were doing all those communication, we're seeing on every TV screen, but you forgot about where you came from. There's never a day that I don't think about Bosomtwe.
Okay.
So I didn't find myself in a situation where we can say, yeah, you do the talking on TV, but there's nothing that you did at your constituency, something that would have made a major blow. But I took advantage of my visibility to advocate for my people. Okay. The support of the people has placed us in a situation where Bosomtwe is rising, and you can see when you enter the STEM Academy and see the road network that is being done and the buildings that are coming up, better than the schools that are built in America.
It looks like a good story. We'll take a quick break right now, Dr. Educhum. You're watching The Next MP with me, Kafui Day. My guest is the Member of Parliament for the good people of Bosomtwe in the Ashanti region, also Deputy Minister for Education in charge of basic and secondary education. When we return, we'll be talking about that other hat that he wears. Don't go anywhere.
As the national regulator of the communications industry in Ghana, the National Communications Authority seeks to ensure an environment that is safe and fair for consumers and service providers. NCA grants licenses and authorizations for operation of communication systems and services, develops guidelines to streamline communication activities, establish and monitor quality of service indicators for operators and service providers. NCA is in 8 regions: Accra, Tamale, Takoradi, Kumasi, Ho, Koforidua, Sunyani, and Bolgatanga. Do you have unresolved complaints with your service providers? Contact us on 0800110662, 0307011419 between the hours of 8 o'clock a.m. and 5 o'clock p.m. from Monday to Friday, or visit our website at www.nca.org.gh and follow the procedure for filing a complaint or submitting enquiry. National Communications Authority, communications for development.
You're watching The Next MP with me, Kafui Day. My guest is the Member of Parliament for Bosomtwe in the Ashanti region, Dr. Yao Osei Educhum. He is also Deputy Minister for Education in charge of basic and secondary education. And that's where we'll be looking at for the next couple of minutes. Tell us about a free SHS and what has been the most challenging aspect of rolling out this particular project, which was a campaign promise not only for 2016 but in 2012 when the president was running as a candidate for the MPP. Biggest challenge so far?
The greatest opportunity so far, before I get to the biggest challenge, greatest opportunity so far is when within a period of 3 years, you've been able to increase enrollment to senior high school by over 400,000 more students. 400,000 students who will be sitting at home, who wouldn't have gotten an opportunity within just a period of 3 years. So imagine the next 3 years we add another 400,000, 400,000, 400,000. The country begins to shift in terms of opportunities that are presented by education. Now, in any program, of course you're going to have challenges. The greatest challenge we face was facilities. And
is that what occasioned the green track and the gold track?
The double track program. And the double track is a very unique concept because the reason why I got a job in California as a high school teacher was because they introduced double track there. There we call the year-round schools. And just a brief history so that people can situate this within the context as to how we solved the greatest challenge that we met. In California, in 2000, early 2000s, 90s, and way before that, high school used to be 3 years. You went to high school for 3 years, and that was it. Middle school was 3 years, elementary and primary was 6 years, and then it went all the way up. But the university said, no, 3 years is not good enough to prepare students for university education. Therefore, we want you to change the high school system. And they brought high school to 4 years, and then what they did was that they maintained 3 years of junior high, and they cut 1 year off primary school. So the primary school became K through 5. And their rationale was that at the early years of education, when primary school was 6 years, there was no kindergarten. So now that we're making kindergarten mandatory for every child, we don't have to have 6 years of primary. So they have K through 5, and then you have 6th grade in junior high through 8th grade, and then you have 4 years of senior high school. But their greatest challenge then was facilities and hiring more teachers. So when they switched to the 4-year high school system, they needed more facilities in the high schools, and they needed more teachers in the high schools. And the whole thing was then to hire more teachers, and some of us got hired. That was the first time I got hired as a full-time teacher. But the one thing they couldn't do away with immediately was how to come up with more facilities. So yes, they came out with some portable buildings, but it wasn't enough. So then they had to introduce year-round schools, or what we call double track, dividing the school into 3 groups. 2 groups are there all the time, and then at the same time, and then one will go on vacation, the other one will come and replace. And then you do it in such a way that gives you time to enroll more students with limited facilities, and then you work towards the facilities. So in California, it took them about 10 years. And then they were able to eliminate the double track in most of their schools. But even still, some schools are double track.
So you modeled that and brought it here to Ghana. But let's deal with 2 complaints that I've heard. First of all, the first complaint comes from the teachers who say that some teachers have complained that the double track does not allow easy retention of information, and so when the students come back from one track, then they need to spend a lot of time now reacquainting them with what they learned before, and it takes away time from what they should be learning anew.
You see, this is
how do you respond to that?
You see, there are some people who at the beginning will say that I'd rather be green, right, or I'd rather be gold. Now, if you're on gold track, how we structured at the beginning, you went 4 months non-stop. So some parents will tell you that is too long a period of time. 16 weeks, too much. I'd rather have a break, right? And then I'll come on board. Now, for those who will say that the green track, for example, at the beginning, they do 2 months and go on vacation and then come and finish up the year. Those are the ones who come in, and some people will say that because they've been home, now you have to review, right? But those same group of people, after finishing up the 2 months, they don't go on vacation. They continue. They will continue. on, while the others are on vacation. So there are merits on both sides. Somebody will say, I'd rather have a break, and when I'm home, I'll study. When I go back, the group that is going non-stop, I'll be ahead of them because I had a lot of time reviewing what I was taught previously. So there are pros and cons on both sides. But the most important thing is the hours of instruction. In education, you are not so much concerned about how many days, but how many hours. You can go to school for 5 days and learn 20 hours.
It's contact hours.
Contact hours.
Right.
And you can go to school for 5 days and learn 30 contact hours. So what was done under this regime was the fact that contact hours was significantly improved, so that they will get more sitting in front of their teachers. So you have a shorter number of days, but the hours are way more than the previous, under the previous regime. So yes, there are some give and takes here and there. But what is exciting is the fact that you've created a system which generally does not shortchange the students in terms of contact hours. And at the same time, you've enabled 400,000 more students to go to school. So when you look at that, then you are willing to live with the inconveniences.
Because the benefits
are way. So if you're a parent, for example, and your child was, let's say, super smart, and you have all the resources, and you knew that that kid will get aggregate 6 or 7, and he was going to go to Wesley Girls, that kind of thinking, right? You may find yourself in a situation and say, my child will have gone anyway, right? But if your child happens to be from Chobidi, and that child was going to
Is that in your constituency?
No.
I wanted you to pick one from your constituency.
From Bonkoko.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if your child was from Bonkoko, and he was not likely to have gone to secondary school, not because he's not smart, but he didn't do so well on the BEC. Maybe he would have gotten aggregate 30. And because of that, there would have been a cutoff. And that he could not have gone to public school. There's something that was going on in this country that most people didn't know. And that is what in the olden days we call pass no way. What it means is this. The high school headmasters will be asked, how many sports do you have in your school to enroll more students next year? And everybody will bring their numbers. So when they bring in their numbers, then what the Ghana Education Service will do is this. They say, okay, based on the spaces available, we can only enroll, let's say, 400,000 students.
So a lot of people were cut out if they didn't make it.
Get a certain point.
Okay.
And unfortunately, majority of them were the ones from the rural areas.
Who can also pay.
Who cannot pay
as well.
And at the same time, not get access to public school.
Okay.
They were the ones who would then go and borrow and go to private school. It was a very interesting situation going on in the country, where the poorest of the poor, if they want to go to senior high school, had to pay.
But how about the argument that free SHS, well, it's great if you don't have money because it allows your child to go to school. But how about those who can afford to pay? There were these arguments about, did you do enough means testing to show that those who can afford should actually pay to go to school, and then it allows those who don't have the resources to take advantage of this. This
is the only country where government is we cut the government a slack, right? Government comes and say, I can afford to do it. And people are saying, why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? This is the only country where we cut the government a slack, and I think that is fun. But in other jurisdictions, when you talk about means testing, it's easy, right? Because everybody files their income tax. So you take your income tax filing, and that is how we know you made money or you didn't make money. Beyond the government workers, how many people file their taxes? So when you talk about the rich in this country, is this the person selling spare parts at Kokompe?
He could be a rich person. But then you will not know because the taxes are not filed.
Or you go to the ministries and chief director may not make a lot of money, but he's richer than the person selling spare parts because the spare parts person doesn't file taxes, and chief director file his taxes, so you know how much he makes. So at the end of the day, what was going to happen if you were using the income tax as a means testing approach is going to be that those who are working for government, those who are paying taxes, income taxes, are the ones who will have to pay fees. And the vast majority of the people who may be richer than the chief director of a ministry will not be paying. So the bottom line is this. We don't have a very good means testing regime to begin with to talk about who is rich and who is not rich, who should pay and who should not pay. Because one of the things I've seen is that those who have means are giving so much to their schools. And the number of buildings you go and see are donated by people who are rich. They contribute through their year groups to build facilities in various senior high schools. You go to big-time high schools, and parents are contributing through PTAs to build, and others are donating huge sums of money. So they're already supporting their schools.
Okay.
So in my opinion, what we need to do is not so much about who should pay and who should not pay. The first thing you have to ask the government is, how are you going to do this?
All right.
And the government said, the last 3 years, we've never defaulted in sending money and resources to schools.
Initially, the funding was coming from the annual budget funding amount, but now I understand it's from the scholarship secretariat. Is that correct?
For
free SHS.
Free SHS funding, whether it's from AFA or it's not, it's actually channeled through the scholarship secretariat. Yeah, so it's just a way of which entity receives the money for disbursement.
All right.
It's not.
Let me raise another concern. This is a social one. So I've heard parents complain that the way the gold and the green track work, at some point in time, you're going to have a lot of teenagers who have nothing to do and may end up, involving themselves in vices. There was a social angle. What's your response? Have you heard such complaints?
Before free senior high school, 400,000 young men and women were not going to school at all. So what happened to them?
They probably found work earlier than they would have found work.
If there was work. So if you are worried that during the vacation, the young women or young men may engage themselves in certain vices, right? You are only talking about vacation. But before this time, they wouldn't have gone to school altogether. They would have been on the streets. So what happened to them? So when you begin to think about, what will happen? Then look at day schools, right? What about the day students who have always been day students? You go to Aquinas, it has always been a day school. You go to other schools, the community day schools. What about the day students? When the girl or the boy leaves school and is going home, what is it that they cannot do? So sometimes we try to rationalize something to scare parents and tell them your child is at home and something bad can happen. But that child was at home when he was in junior high school, when she was in junior high school. And that child was home when she didn't have the opportunity, if she had not been provided opportunity to go to senior high school to begin with. So now that he's in school, you are worried about the vacation. What about if they did not get a chance to go to senior high school at all?
I get you on that. Let's talk coronavirus, COVID, and its possible impact on basic and secondary education. What are your projections? How hard do you think, do you project that basic and secondary education will be hit by COVID-19?
It's tough, my brother. Very difficult. It gives us time to soberly reflect on where we are with education. Education is changing around the world. This morning I was listening to BBC talking about the 10th and to 12th graders in England going back to school, and the trepidation. People are just scratching their heads and say, what do we need to do? The social distancing rules that need to be enforced, how are we going to do that? It's not easy. I've said that given the fact that COVID-19 is around and we have not actually gotten a vaccine yet, education and COVID-19 are strange bedfellows. They have to lie on the same bed. And how do they arrange to lie together and exist is what is confronting all educationists around the world.
Is COVID pushing education off the bed?
It's tough. It's tough. You have to find a way to get the two of them to coexist. And it's not easy. Given the fact that the disease is contagious and any mistake that you make can cause havoc. So having said that, what the president talked about in terms of class size reduction is something that is being taken seriously by the Ghana Education Service. I've always made this analogy that some years back, schools will complain that we have no chalk. The chalk has not come in. The Ghana Education Service will say, oh, don't worry, it's coming in a week's time. Now we can't do that anymore. If the nose marks are not there, the head teacher cannot open the school and will not open the school when school opens, which means that we have to make sure everything is in place based on the president's directive to make sure that the hand sanitizers are there, to make sure that the social distancing regime is maintained, to make sure that you don't have more than 25 students in any classroom, no excuse, and to make sure that the children that are under your watch in the classrooms are not allowed to do whatever they want to do, which also means that we literally have to have something like a substitute teaching kind of system. If for a reason a teacher doesn't show up because of illness, somebody has to be in that classroom. So it's no longer a luxury for us to supervise the case well. No, you have to supervise the case well. You can't have one student leaving his class, going to another place, sitting somewhere. In a situation like this, if it's 25 to a class, there only have to be 25 desks there in that classroom, and you need to remove the rest of them.
And it's going to be quite tough because the double track system came about because we didn't have enough infrastructure in the first place, but we wanted people to go to school. And now you're going to have smaller class sizes, and so the existing classrooms will now have to populate fewer people. So there are a lot of balls that you are juggling.
Actually, you see, the double track reduced the class sizes. It didn't double class sizes, it reduced the class sizes. And if you go to Germany now, almost all the countries are now using double track.
Yes, but in Ghana right now, so
I'm just saying that double track did not necessarily, did not increase class sizes. It reduced class sizes because it reduced the number of students who were there at a certain point in time, and therefore we were able to reduce class sizes.
So are you saying that when the children go back to school, the numbers of pupils or students in a class will not change?
It will change
in spite of COVID?
No. The president has directed that it cannot be, for high school, it cannot be more than 25. So if your class size was 17, that's not what we are concerned. Now, it has to be 25 or less.
So that's like 3 different classrooms?
Yes. And the fact that all the other students are not there, your entire Form 1 students are not there in the school. And part of Form 2, 2/3 of Form 2 is also not there. Okay. So that's the opportunity that you now have to decongest, because the school has now been reduced to one track of Form 2 and Form 3. And in schools where they are not year-round, so there are about 300 schools that are not double track. And in those schools, only Form 3 is there. No Form 2, no Form 1. Gold track is not part of the equation in those schools. Okay. So for about 300 schools, they are totally going to be empty, literally, because it's only Form 3 that is there. Form 1 is out. Form 2 is out, and they have a wonderful opportunity of actually complying with the president's directive, and even if they want, go even down further, because the spaces are just available.
Let's deal with a couple of concerns. So President Mahama on the 29th of May on Facebook urged the government to listen to teacher unions and listen to parents when it comes to returning students to school. And he also talked about the possibility of mass testing. Are you taking his advice?
We've taken the advice of many people around the country and around the world. And of course, anything that anybody says, even if they are not former president and candidate at the same time, which is kind of unique, we'll have taken it anyway. So,
will you mass test?
No.
So you have not taken his advice?
No, why would I take the advice of a former president who is running as a candidate for president? No.
So if I said, would you, if I were the chairman of the PTAs, national PTAs, and I said, please, mass test, I don't want to expose my children to harm.
Let me tell you,
would you have taken my advice?
I would say these are the things I'm putting in place, and where the situation demands, I will do what you are telling me. But I have a plan, right? I have a plan.
Is mass testing part of your plan?
No.
Why not?
No, but the thing is this. The thing is this. I test you today, right? You get into trotro, right? Home, you are not in trotro. But let me say, I test you today, you are negative. You get the trotro and come back. You may get it from there. So do I have to test you every day?
But I'm going to Achimota school. No, you test me before I enter Achimota school, and I'll be in Achimota school for 6 weeks.
Oh, let me tell you.
What again?
You are still interfacing with so many people. The reason is this. I'm just saying and making the point that the mass testing in itself does not necessarily mean that you've held everything at bay. Otherwise, every country will say, let's mass test everybody, and after we finish that, we are done. No. Well, all that I'm saying is this. There are so many things that you have to do in addition to testing or no testing. For example, why am I wearing this? I believe strongly that I don't have COVID-19. But in abundance of caution, to make you confident, to protect you, or maybe I have something that I don't even know I have it. So I have something here. This is covering me. Any droplet that is coming out is deposited in the cloth. It doesn't get here and infect all these beautiful people who the viewers may not see. So I have something that is holding the disease at bay, and to the extent that I can do this consistently and discipline myself, I'm saving other people who are around me. That's why the president says face mask is mandatory, because this is the best prevention yet that we have. To the extent that we are giving all the students the face mask,
okay,
you have done something that is taking the students, the disease at bay. And that is why we're also mapping all schools onto health centers. This is going to be, opening school this time is going to be the way between education and health. So every network of schools will have a hospital. In case you see any symptoms, the hospital triggers the emergency system and action is taken. So bottom line is this. I think we are being called upon to do something in a certain meticulous fashion that we've never done before. And that to me is the most important thing. That a teacher who comes to class, who lives in the community and will be coming back and forth every day. The first thing is you have your mask when you get into the car that is taking you to the school, whether it's taxi or trotro.
All right.
If you lose that, it doesn't matter if I did test you the first day that you came to work.
You'll be exposed.
You'll be exposed.
All right. So, observing the safety protocols, the hygiene protocols.
It's so critical.
It's critical. It's critical that I take a break right now. You're watching the next MP with me, Kafui Day. When we return, we'll continue the conversation with the Honourable Member of Parliament for Bosuntri in the Ashanti region, Dr. Yao Osei Iditru. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, my name is Jermaine Nkrumah. For decades, leaders in Ghana have been complaining about brain drain, referring to the mass exodus of Ghanaians into foreign lands. The good news is lately, that brain drain has actually evolved into what many refer to as brain gain. In other words, Ghanaians left and have acquired new skills, and they are now available to come home to help with national development. In fact, here at DNT, we insist that there is nothing that Ghana needs done towards her development that she cannot find a Ghanaian to do, be they at home or from somewhere in the world. The question is there a role for Ghanaians abroad to play in Ghana's development? If the answer is yes, then we have to ask ourselves, what are the measures that have been put in place to facilitate their return home to help with nation building? Join me on Diaspora Weekly every Saturday at 9 o'clock in the morning as I engage Ghanaians, be they at home or abroad, as we analyze the topical issues and relevant issues pertaining to how diasporans abroad can come home and help with nation building. My name is Jermaine Nkrumah, and this is Diaspora Weekly.
You're watching The Next MP. My name is Kafui. My guest is the Honourable Member of Parliament for the good people of Bosomtwi, which houses the biggest lake in West Africa, natural lake. Yes, his name is Dr. Yao Osei Educhum. He's also the Deputy Minister for Education in charge of basic and secondary education. We're going to flip back to Parliament and what he does in Parliament. But before that, there was an interesting idea that I saw coming also from the candidate who wants to be president of Ghana come January 7, 2021. He says if he becomes president, he will extend free SHS to private schools. What's your thought on that? Is that something that you are thinking of doing?
I don't know how you extend free SHS to private schools. Already, those who did not have access, right, and they were cut off, have been given the opportunity to go to public senior high schools. And that is why you hear a number of private schools that were set up to cater for the poor. Some of them are closing shop. So I don't know if you say you include private, where are they going to get the students from? You see, the interesting thing, as I said earlier, that was going on in this country, is the fact that at the basic level, primary school level, right, you have those who are well-to-do going to private. Junior high, those who are well-to-do going to private, because they want their children to do so well that when they are going to senior high school, then they will jump into the public. And those whose children are in the public space at the primary and junior high are the ones who are prevented from going to the public.
And you say that with the free SHS, that system will not work?
You see, with the free SHS, what is happening is that the private schools that were set up, because there are different tiers of private schools.
I understand.
We have the top level, Christian Academy in Dodua, GIS, ICS.
And then the bottom level.
And then those who were serving a particular niche. And that niche was those who were cut off from the public schools, then finding place in the lower tier,
right,
if you may call it, private schools. Now, without the cutoff, that pool has been drained, and those students who will have otherwise gone to private school because they were cut off are now in public schools.
Okay.
So when somebody is saying, I want to include private schools, are you talking about GIS? Are you talking about ICS? And those parents who go there, they go there because this is where I want my child to be.
Okay.
And I don't think those parents couldn't have put in their children in free senior high school. They had a choice. Their children did so well on the exams. And instead of going to GIS, they could have gone to Achimota, Wesley Girls, any school that they wanted to go to. But to them, their choice was that they wanted an international kind of education with the Cambridge and IB program, and therefore put their children in the private school. Are they the ones people are talking about that they want them to be part of free senior high school?
I doubt it. But that's a conversation for another time. Let's get back into Parliament. I know you are on the Works and Housing Committee, which has been in the news, for quite some time now. I know Mr. Speaker is asking you and your fellow members of the committee to come up with a report on the Saglemi housing project.
Yes.
Tell us how that is going.
The Saglemi, I would say, debacle is a very interesting one. Interesting in the sense that a loan was secured to do certain number of units of construction of affordable housing, approved by Parliament. So Parliament knew that there was I've forgotten the number of units.
So 5,000.
Yeah. Parliament knew we are getting 5,000.
For this amount of money.
That, they approved the loan. Done. Then, after the approval, the minister in charge of housing then go and reduce the number of housing units, but does not reduce the loan amount, short-circuiting the process entirely. For the life of me, I don't understand why anybody would do that. That if you are reducing the number of units, it makes sense that the amount of loan we are contracting should also go down. But the loan stays the same, the housing units get reduced substantially. And that is what the minister is saying, that something needs to be looked into, because it doesn't look good for this country.
So for those of you in the committee, give us a sense of what happens at the committee level when you're supposed to look into this, when the speaker says, go and look into this.
The speaker, of course, will not have all the facts at disposal, even if the minister is saying it. So when he says look into it, means the committee now has to look at all the documents covering them from the Hansard, where all the records were has been kept, and using that to look at what actually took place and confirming what the minister said.
Do you speak with people as well?
Of course.
Are you getting cooperation?
In that case, you really have to, at the committee level, you literally have to subpoena people and say, you are the contractor, we need you to speak to us. You did this aspect of the work, we need you to come and talk to us. So the committee will have to, if it's formally referred to the committee, it has to really do its work and report back to the House.
You're on another committee to the poverty reduction
reduction strategy.
What are your achievements there? I mean, what have you done?
I'll tell you this. I wish the committee would have been more active. But we do visits of various agencies that are in the poverty reduction arena. I mean, education has poverty reduction components. Any issue, any committee whose activities involves the poor and how to eliminate poverty has something to do with the poverty reduction strategies committee, including Minister of Finance for that matter. So the oversight, it actually encompasses a whole number of ministries, and we have to look at what are you doing to reduce poverty or eliminate poverty for that matter. In my opinion, the battlefront should be poverty elimination. It's not good. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't smell good to be poor.
Are you impressed with Ghana's democracy?
Yes. And I think we could do more. That's it. We've done very well and can do more.
Where can we do more in?
Where we can do more is looking at having a bold vision, like the president has expressed through Ghana Beyond Aid. A vision that may not come to fruition in a year or two, even during the term of that president, but a vision that will endure and ensure that we can free ourselves from the shackles of poverty and deprivation and disease and squalor.
Do you think if your opponents come into power, they will scrap Ghana Beyond Aid? Is that your fear?
I don't even know if they understand it, with all due respect. If somebody has a vision to do something, it's uniquely his vision. And if you don't give him time to really bring it into fruition and allow anybody to take over, you may not see that vision coming into fruition. For example, if somebody was to take over Bosomtwe from me, if somebody competed with me and took over, right? He may not even see the need for a STEM academy. My vision is that within the next 10, 15 years, Bosomtwe constituency will have 100 medical doctors, 100 engineers, and in order for me to accomplish that, I'm building Bosomtwe Science, Technology, and Engineering Mathematics Academy to create that pipeline. Somebody comes to office and take over from me, have no idea the importance of getting 100 medical doctors, 100 engineers. Why would he care less about the STEM Academy?
Because there's no continuity. Otherwise, you'd have to stay in power for 4 terms or 5 terms.
And that is
and
why
hope that your government also is in power.
That is why I'm so happy that the Constitution of Ghana did not say that there's a term limit for parties to come into power. There's no term limit for parties to come into power, which means after Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, if we do everything well, which I'm sure we'll do, MPP can be in power for the next 2 terms to make it 16, and then you can see transformation of this country. So the Constitution never said that one party should do 8 years and go away, another should come. I think the good people of Ghana should now really sit down and say, if this government is doing a fantastic job, we should not change it just for the sake of change, that in 8 years another party should come. No, it should be about, if your party is good, you can stay in power as long as you are on the transformation plan and you are pursuing a transformation agenda.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yao Edichum, Deputy Minister for Education and the Member of Parliament for the good people of Bosomtwe. And that is our show. My name is Kafui Day. Thank you for watching The Next MP.